Look around your house right now. You probably have antibacterial soap in the bathroom, bleach under the kitchen sink, and hand sanitizer in your pocket. When you smell that sharp, chemical scent of a freshly cleaned floor, your brain registers a specific feeling: safety. We have spent the last century waging a relentless, microscopic war against dirt. We boil our water, we pasteurize our milk, and we scrub our skin until it's raw. We believe that to be clean is to be healthy, but there is a terrifying biological consequence to our sterile modern world. For millions of years, your ancestors lived in the dirt. They were covered in soil, animal microbes, and bacteria. In response, the human immune system evolved into an aggressive, military-grade defense network. It is a biological army built for a world that was constantly trying to infect us. So, what happens to a highly trained army when it suddenly has absolutely no enemies left to fight? It doesn't just pack up and go home. It gets bored, and then it attacks you. Today, we are going to dive into the hygiene hypothesis and discover how our obsession with being perfectly clean has triggered a massive global explosion of allergies and autoimmune diseases. To understand the glitch in your immune system, we have to go back 200,000 years. Your ancestors did not wash their hands before dinner. They scavenged meat off the savannah, pulled roots directly out of the dirt and ate them unwashed, and drank water from muddy rivers. They slept on the ground, surrounded by insects, animal feces, and a trillion invisible microbes. Because of this constant exposure, early humans were heavily infected with parasites, specifically parasitic worms called helminths. Almost every human being who ever lived prior to the 20th century had worms living inside their gut. This sounds like a nightmare to us, but to your immune system, it was just a normal Tuesday. To survive this constant barrage of invaders, your body developed a specialized weapon, an antibody called immunoglobulin E, or IgE. IgE is essentially the heavy artillery of your immune system. Its entire evolutionary purpose was to hunt down, attack, and destroy multicellular parasites like worms. For hundreds of thousands of years, this system was locked in a brutal, endless war. Your IgE weapons were constantly firing, keeping the invaders at bay so you could survive. Then came the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We discovered germs. We invented plumbing, water filtration, and eventually antibiotics. In an incredibly short amount of time, just a few generations, we completely changed the human environment. We paved over the dirt with concrete. We moved indoors. We started wrapping our food in plastic and aggressively sterilizing everything we touched. From a public health standpoint, this was a miracle. We stopped dying of cholera and dysentery. Infant mortality plummeted. We won the war against the ancient microbes, but we forgot to tell our immune system that the war was over. This brings us to the core of the hygiene hypothesis. Imagine you have a standing army of millions of highly trained, incredibly aggressive soldiers. They are armed to the teeth and waiting for an invasion of parasites, but you put them inside a sterile, concrete bunker where absolutely nothing happens. Day after day, year after year, no enemies show up. The soldiers don't just go to sleep. They become hyper-vigilant. They become paranoid because your immune system is no longer busy fighting off worms and deadly bacteria in the dirt. It starts looking for targets. It desperately needs something to attack. So it begins to misidentify harmless, everyday substances as mortal threats. A speck of dust floats into your nose, or a particle of peanut protein, or a microscopic grain of pollen from a tree. To a normal immune system, these are completely harmless. But to a bored, understimulated immune system, that speck of pollen looks like an invading army. The heavy artillery, the IgE antibodies that were meant to fight off parasites, are suddenly unleashed on a piece of dust. Your throat swells, your eyes water, your skin breaks out in hives. Your body triggers a massive, violently overblown inflammatory response. This is what an allergy is. It is not your body being weak. It is your body being far too strong and incredibly confused. And it gets worse than just sneezing in the spring. When the immune system really loses its mind, it doesn't just attack pollen or peanuts. It starts attacking you. Over the last 70 years, as the developed world became cleaner and cleaner, rates of autoimmune diseases skyrocketed. disoriented. Type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, and lupus. These are diseases where the human immune system gets so completely disoriented by the lack of external threats that it turns its weapons inward, attacking the body's own organs, nerves, and tissues. Interestingly, these diseases are largely modern, and they are heavily concentrated in wealthy, hyper-clean, industrialized nations, in parts of the world where people still live closely with agriculture, animals, and dirt. These allergy and autoimmune rates are dramatically lower. Their immune systems are still doing what they evolved to do. We are not suggesting we should go back to drinking contaminated water or abandoning modern medicine. The invention of sanitation saved billions of lives, but we have to recognize the biological trade-off. We took an organism that was perfectly adapted to survive in a chaotic, dirty, microbe-filled world, and we sealed it inside a plastic box. We eradicated the parasites, but in doing so, we created a world where a peanut can be lethal, and where stepping outside in the spring feels like a biological attack. So the next time you drop a piece of food on the floor, or you get mud on your hands, maybe you don't need to panic and reach for the bleach. Maybe, just maybe, that tiny little bit of dirt is exactly what your ancestors' immune system has been waiting for.